Do you also have a dozen rolls of filament where each roll doesn't have quite enough plastic for an actual print? What are you going to do with it? Sure, you could put them all in your AMS, ACE, CFS, whatever you have. Or, hear me out, you melt them all together. Like what I've started here. I've already put in 4 rolls of filament here, and it's one continuous strand. And to do that, we have the Sunlu filament connector. In the box, you get the connector itself, which has a touch screen once we plug it in, a heating element that you'll stick the filament in, and then a cutter for the wrap. Speaking of the wrap, this one came with 100 of these. You put them around the section that's getting melted together, put that in the heating element, and then the cutter will let you peel it back off. So these are consumable. And then finally, it comes with this USB cable to DC adapter. It's only 10 watts. So you only need USB-A. And then finally, it does recommend you cut each filament at a diagonal so that it better melts together in here. Like I said, I've done it a few times, and so far the issue is it's a bit wobbly when it's still cooling, so you got to be careful to keep it together. The instructions do say that as you heat this up, you kind of hold it together for 8 to 10 seconds. It'll beep, and then you move it to the cutter. I have found getting it into the cutter real quick, but not cutting it, will help keep that connection straight. If all you have is leftover filament and need prints now, then head to PCBWay. Upload your STL file and get an instant quote after you select quantity, material, color, and much more. Doesn't matter if you need 1 or 1,000, PCBWay will begin production in just a few days. If you don't need 3D printing, check out their custom PCBs, PCB assembly, CNC machining, and more. Use my link in the description below to save $5 off your first order. There are 3 major steps to melt each end to each other. First thing you should do is begin preheating the device, because at 10 watts, it took about 5 minutes to get to the recommended 185 degrees Celsius for PLA, and 5 minutes feels longer than you think as you stand there staring at it. First, we cut each filament at a diagonal. This is to maximize the surface area of each filament when it melts together. Maximizing the surface area will create a better bond, and later on with the results, we'll take a look at times I didn't do so well bonding this filament together. Use the provided PTFE connector sleeves and join the filament inside of it. The second step is to put the filament join into the heating element. It's a lot easier when I can see what I'm doing, but I also wanted to make sure the camera had a decent view. Once you have the join on the heater, then close the lid, and about 8 seconds later, the device will beep at you, letting you know it should be melted together. Be careful here, because while it's hot, it'll separate easily. The instructions say to use light pressure to hold them together during heating, and the 10 seconds you should let it cool after melting it together. It's easy to mess it up, and if you do, cut, re-sleeve, and heat it again. I've done it plenty of times trying to film this. Without a proper join, it'll fail to feed into your extruder or just break, so take your time. Finally, once cool, place it in the cutter behind the heating element and by the hinge of the upper lid. 1.75mm filament should just clip in gently, and close the upper lid to press the sleeve against the cutter inside. It'll just score it, so after pushing and removing, use your nail to peel it off. If the filament breaks while you tear off the sleeve, well, it was too weak of a joint to survive printing anyway. I did find putting it into the cutter and waiting for it to cool a little more would straighten the joint, and many times I had to help push it into the cutter with a small screwdriver, so keep one handy. Keep going until you're done. I found out the hard way that you can't estimate how much filament is on your roll unless you know the weight of an empty roll. Since it's not wound as tightly as new filament, I ended up with about half, so I had to pull more old rolls off the shelf to finish my prints, where I thought I was safe at a 800 gram benchy, but it made it about 65%. I don't know what I'm going to print yet, but let's get this into the dryer because some of this filament is pretty old. We'll figure out what to print. The results, well, they're middling. When the bond holds, it works exactly as advertised. But if there's any flaw in your work, then you are better off putting all those rolls in your AMS, ACE, CFS, or whatever you have. 2 printers, 2 different models. When the bond would break, I'd have to clean the extruder because it would break past the filament sensor, so that my U1 would start to air print. Then I switched to my H2C when it also blobbed up the extruder on my U1, which is going to need another disassemble. However, when it works, it's great. I have 20 rolls of PETG-CF I plan on using to sell a homemade design, and this could be useful for combining leftover filament. I'll probably just let the filament systems do the work of swapping rolls, but if you have a printer without one, this may just be the product for you.